For over 10 years, I've been trying to make my digital video look more like film. In that time, I've tried pretty much all the recommended techniques, but when I watch movies, I saw something was missing, and I couldn't work out how to achieve it. I tried shooting with a flat color profile. I tried using a 1/48th shutter speed to mimic the 180-degree shutter in film cameras. I kept my ISO low to avoid digital noise, and it certainly looked better. But again, watching professionally shot movies, I could see they were getting a beautiful effect that I couldn't get. So I put it down to the cameras, lighting and lenses I was using. There must be some technique, I thought, that pros use when they have the budget that we just can't get with our cheap smartphone cameras. Then, a couple of weeks ago, I was researching camera filters when I finally discovered what it was I'd been looking for. The crazy thing is, it's actually really simple. Since I realized how this is actually done, I started seeing it everywhere. Like, it seemed almost every movie or TV show is doing this to make their digital video look more cinematic. So I started collecting samples from the stuff I've been watching, so I could show you what I mean. This is a clip from the film The Commune, directed by Thomas Vinterberg, who is one of the original Dogme founders. You might see something in these close-up shots, but in this shot of the window, it's much more obvious. See how the light from the window is glowing? Because when I shoot a window like this with my smartphone, I get blown-out window with harsh, ugly edges. Whereas in this shot, the edges between the light in the window and the frame are smudged and soft, which kind of hides that nasty digital look. I think you'll agree, this effect really adds a beautifying, romantic feel to the shot. This whole sequence has a glowing retro feel to it with soft tones. The feeling is of golden memories. In fact, the film is set in the 1970s. As it happens, I also lived on a commune in the 1970s, so I definitely connected with this film and this idea of a romanticized past. Again, with this clip from 99 Homes, in the first shot we see a blown-out window in the background, but see how it glows. Now compare that to your own footage of windows. Unless you're using one of these filters, it probably won't look like this. Now, as he turns and moves across the window, the light spills out across him. Without this filter, the edge of the actor would be sharp and kind of nasty digital looking, and this is the thing which drove me crazy for a long time. I even spent a lot of time trying to replicate this in one of my films using a method in Adobe After Effects. And it does actually work, but it would really have saved a huge amount of time if we'd just used one of these filters. Plus, the result would probably look more organic and less like a digital effect. If you look at his face here, as he turns to speak to another character, you can see how this filter reduces the contrast on his face. Now, reducing contrast on an actor's face, or anyone's face, is obviously going to be much more flattering than having harsh shadows which show up every wrinkle and skin blemish. Without this filter, the actor, Michael Shannon, would more likely be in shadow. So he'd look more like a silhouette. And that's the thing about this filter. It even brings out details in the shadow. And that's without having to use various color profiles and lookup tables. Using this filter, which is actually known as a diffusion filter, you'll get extra details in the shadows directly into the camera. And as I keep saying in my videos, it's vitally important with the highly compressed videos we get from our smartphones that we do as much in camera as possible. In this Danish documentary about Danish men and their Thai brides, we can see again the use of this filter. It's particularly obvious in this shot, as the light bouncing off the motorbike has a big glow on it. But the filter is probably being used in the other shots too. It's just that the filter's effect is more obvious when there are strong highlights. But even in the other shots, it's working to soften the image and reduce contrast. Interestingly, in this film, there is a 7-year gap between the first half and the second half. The film makes a 7-year jump, and in that time, you can see they upgraded their camera and also added more subtle filters. This is a show starring American comedian Dave Bird. So again, I noticed the use of diffusion filters, especially in this shot here, with the window in the background. So you're probably starting to get a sense that windows and bright lights show you a diffusion filter is being used. That is, unless they are adding this digitally, which is also possible. But essentially the effect is the same. A nice, glowing, diffused light washing out from the window, which would otherwise contain harsh digital lines. This is a show I found on BBC iPlayer. Actually, I read that they received many complaints about the lighting as it was too dark. Certainly some of the first scenes I saw were extremely dark, although the makers say this was a creative choice. So this close-up of one of the main characters shows they're using quite an extreme diffusion filter. See how the contrast on Himesh Patel's face is greatly reduced. This diffusion effect also ties the elements of the frame together. It makes it feel as if the window, the actor, and other elements in the frame are all occupying the same color palette. I have talked previously about cinematographers painting with light. Well, a technique actually used by painters is to take a color, like the yellow from the sun in this painting by Van Gogh, and then diffuse it, in a way, around the painting. In other words, smaller amounts of the same color are added to other objects in the frame, and this ties everything in the painting together. Because that's how light works. Light is bouncing around all over the place, reflecting off all kinds of different surfaces. So the effect this diffusion filter has is to make the frame appear more organic, because organic means messy, while digital video and audio makes things look or sound clean and crisp. So now you can see the difference a diffusion filter makes. The question is, how do you add one to your smartphone filmmaking setup? So the diffusion filter I stumbled on is called a Black Pro Mist, and it's by a company called Tiffen. The Black Pro Mist is the one most talked about, and it comes in 5 different strengths, from 3 at the top to 1/8, which is the weakest. So depending on your creative needs, you can choose how much diffusion you want the filter to apply. The strongest filter is really going to create huge blooms from lights and windows, as well as significantly reduce contrast. On the other hand, the weakest will add just some subtle misting around the edges and reduce contrast just a touch. Of course, the ideal situation would be to have all 5 and choose the filter according to the needs of the shot. However, these filters are not the cheapest. Plus, do you really want to be carrying around a big case full of filters? Not only that, but the Black Pro Mist is only one of a large variety of diffusion filters, all of which create subtly different changes to the image. Which one are you going to choose? For that reason, I decided to start with the one everyone is talking about, and has been most often used in the past by filmmakers. I opted for the Black Pro Mist 1/2 strength. So here's some test shots to show you what difference it makes. can see that by adjusting the exposure and increasing the brightness, you can also increase the light bloom effect. When I started using this filter, I immediately felt like I had another set of colours in my cinematographer's palette. While you might not always notice it, it really makes a big difference to the overall look, in my opinion. Now, mounts like Beast Grip as well as these clips often use a 37mm thread. So I visited Tiffon's website and found they do a 37mm option, but only for the 1/4 and 1/8 strengths. Plus I really wanted to purchase it via Amazon so I didn't have to deal with the import duty. Amazon UK didn't stock the 37mm Black Pro Mist, but they did have the 49mm. So I chose the half strength and also grabbed a 37mm to 49mm step-up ring. Now I can mount the 49mm filter to my 37mm clip. I wish I'd bought the 58mm Black Pro Mist actually, because then it would have mounted directly to my Beast Grip 3x telephoto lens. But anyway, when you start adding lenses and filters, and you can see choices start to get more complicated. And I'm not a fan of overcomplicating things. I just want to shoot films, and I hate being bogged down in lenses, filters, tripods, microphones, and trying to work out which one is best to use. But as this filter is so key to getting a cinematic look, something that I've been really trying to find out the answer to for such a long time, and is used by professional cinematographers around the world, I do think it's worth investing the time in this one. If you buy one of these thinking it's going to magically make you a better cinematographer, I'm afraid you'll be disappointed. It doesn't matter what equipment you use, if your framing and lighting is ugly, your shot is going to be ugly too. But the point is, if you get everything right, and like me, you feel there's this essential ingredient missing, then adding this extra option is like icing on the cake. But like, you know, beautiful, soft, romantic icing. For example, wide shots of landscapes or cityscapes probably won't benefit too much from a diffusion filter. If you go out in the middle of the day when everything is washed with sunlight, then a diffusion filter will just make it look even more washed out. On the other hand, a gorgeous sunset might work better. That's because the diffusion filter needs to have a contrast between dark and light areas. That's why we see this effect more clearly on a shot of a window in daylight. You can see the light from the window spilling out across the surrounding area. But if that area was just as bright as the window, then there's less advantage to this filter. Also, these diffusion filters are very good for softening the skin of your subject's face. And most of the time, if we're filming people, we want to show them in the best way possible. And you can also get this nice light filtering across a subject if they're framed by a window or a bright light. What I'm saying is you still need to work on your composition, and this tool is going to help you out by softening the digital lines, by revealing details in the shadows, and by reducing contrast. Cinematography is all about painting with light, so a diffusion filter is something you can really work with to add extra flavors and textures, and ultimately to make your videos look more cinematic. So that's it for this week. Please do like and subscribe if you found this video useful and educational perhaps. And don't forget to hang on for the bonus content, and I'll see you in the next video. So what do you think of the diffusion filter? The Black Pro Mist 1/2 by Tiffon. Yeah, I think it's looks. I'm really excited to have a go with it. I think I've only just started to try a few things and get a sense of how it'll work. It looks, the shots that I did, like by the window, for example, you can see that maybe it's too much. Maybe it looks a bit like my whole face is getting washed out, and that's what I mean. It's not just like a magic thing that you can just put on clip onto your smartphone, and then suddenly you're gonna look like this amazing cinematographer. It's part of a tool to blend the whole frame together.
and also to sort of smudge a bit around the lines and make it look a bit nicer. Because when you film with like a digital camera, if there's like harsh contrast, basically, this is what it is. It's to sort of give you something to play with on the contrast, especially parts of the frame where you've got very extreme light and then less light. So for example, you're pointing at a window and obviously that's like very bright light. One thing I'm going to try would be to bring the exposure down. Maybe that exposure is just too high on those shots where I'm standing by the window, and so I could bring the exposure down. Another thing is that you could try to reduce the light so it's not quite as much light coming through the window. Not as easy, obviously. You could wait for the sun to go down, so you could film at sort of twilight times or in the morning when the sun is just coming up. Yeah, I'm going to play with it and try it out. And it's like it changes the way you use your camera and the settings you use, I think, a little bit. You have to sort of accommodate it. It's not like, say, you don't just slap it on, but I'm just learning. It's the first time I've tried this, and so it's a new experience for me, but I'm really excited about it. And this one was about £70, so that's quite a bit, and if you can't afford that, there is an option. So what you do, I have never tried this, you get basically a UV filter, so that's just the clear glass filter, like this. I think this was about £8 or something, so a lot cheaper. And you get some hairspray. This is maximum hold. No, I don't think it really matters. What kind of hairspray it is, I don't know. You never know. There could be various theories on which hairspray works. Anyway, a diffusion filter is just a piece of glass with stuff on it, like little tiny speckles. Let me see if we can show you. I don't know if you can see this. Anyway, basically it's like, if you look at this close up, it's like someone's put a scattering of dirt on it. And that's what happens. The light hits it, and most of it comes through. I guess if it's a half, then it's half of it comes through. And the other half is diffused. It's sort of sent in different directions. So then we get just a piece of glass which has nothing on it. It should be clean, except this is really dusty, and I need to get one of those photographer's things where you blow it and brush it. So you spray this into the air, and then you just waft this through, maybe once or twice or 3 times, depends how strong you want it to be. So let's try. Twice. So now there it is. It's now got, see, that looks like it's got a lot less on it, and I now smell of hairspray. Anyway, let's see if I put that in front. Is that doing anything? Not too much. Let's do a little bit more. Wait, is it the other way? Make sure not to squirt myself in the eyeball. Let's do it. It doesn't seem to be getting anything. Okay, that looks better. What's that? Is that doing anything? Can't really see it on using the remote thing, but maybe just a little bit there. Push up the brightness. And now I think it needs a bit more. Try again. Yeah, definitely you can start to see that now. Yep. So, but that's obviously overexposed. Bring it down. So that's it. Have a try with that if you want. Obviously it's less scientific because, like with the Tiffen, you've got all these grades, you know exactly what you're going to get. With this, it's like you're very approximate. Still, it works. So